So you can probably hear the birds singing, and it's a lovely spring morning, although still very cold. So I think we need to be very mindful about how much bait we're using, thinking about what type of recipe we're using, and I think it's all important too to spend as much time as possible at your chosen venue, checking out where the weed beds are, what's happened over the winter. Perhaps come over with a marker rod, do a bit of sussing out. That's what I'm doing this weekend on my local lake, and we've got a few things to talk about which we'll pick up with everybody back at the workshop. Certainly there's a few things you can do that are different, and you know me, I like to be different. So we'll try these things out, and William and I will catch up with you in the workshop when you next see us in this clip. See you later. Hello. So we're back in the bait workshop, and I mentioned when we were down having a little look round at the lake, it's been a very cold spring. It still is. In fact, I'm speaking to you on Sunday, which is the bank holiday Sunday weekend, and early May just round the corner, and the forecast for next week is still cold. The water temperatures are still quite cold. The fish aren't moving that much, really just responding to small hook bait presentations, little bits of bags, PVA bags, or stick mixes, or single hook baits cast to rolling fish. They are moving, the fish are moving, but they're not really responding to beds of bait. However, that groundwork I mentioned about, if you get the chance to access your fishery and do a little bit of groundwork at the lake, find out about the weed beds, drop-offs. Lakes do change in the winter, so see what's occurring out there on the lake bed, and draw up some notes of the various swims so that you know what you're fishing over when you do go for a real session. So what I'd like to talk about in this clip is that thing about being different, and I've actually spoken about this before in a former life, in my finance and leasing industry, you know, where you talk about going in business and going outside your comfort zone, and you will have heard about the comfort zone thing before. So what is the comfort zone? The comfort zone is something that you are happy to carry on doing the things that you have always done because they've worked in the past, and why shouldn't they work now? My view is a little bit different, and it's a proven fact that the more times you are prepared to go outside your comfort zone and do things a little bit different, then the more times you're likely to achieve some degree of success, because you are trying something different. And it's a well-known fact that radical decisions bring radical results. They might not be the right result, but you will certainly get a result. If you don't make a radical decision, or you make a mediocre decision, you are more likely to get a mediocre result. And if you think about that and apply it to bait and DIY bait making at home, you have got the power in your hands, and with the powder base mixes, today we're using bio shellfish, you've got the power to use different textures, different colours, different flavour combinations, which are infinite. You can look at the PDF on the website of all the different variations of flavours that you can use, 20 different variations times 6 different base mixes, and that's just with the flavours that I do, and there are other things that you can buy in the supermarket and add to your bait, and that makes it exclusive to you. There is no other degree of control that you can put into your bait than if you do it yourself. And so, you know, I would say that if you can embrace this concept, you are going to be in the minority. You're going to probably be in the 10% of people that you have to decide whether you want to be one of the majority, which is fine, or one of the minority. And one of the minority, in my belief, are the people that are going to have the advantage. Why? Because they've gone outside their comfort zone. And today I'm going to speak about doing a couple of things which are outside the comfort zone in presentation with bait, particularly with regards to the new season coming on rivers for barbel, because barbel anglers have got into the habit, which is fair enough because it's easy, of using pellets, particularly halibut pellets. And halibut pellets are 45% oil content. They're designed for carnivores, which is what a halibut is, it's a carnivore. So they're very high in protein, very high in oil. If you use a pellet designed for a carnivore and put just one handful of high protein, high oil content halibut pellets regularly into your swim on your river, particularly if it's a small river with a low population of barbel, then you're going to fill the fish up and you're actually going to upset them because they can't deal with the oil content. So I would urge everybody, and I'm using this YouTube channel to get this message across, lots and lots of halibut pellets are used, and high oil content trout and salmon pellets, which are not designed for omnivores. Be careful when you throw free offerings into the river, because you're not just spoiling your own fishing very often. Even though they'll catch fish, we know they catch fish, you're spoiling the fishing for other people. So think about that. One handful of halibut pellets can ruin your own fishing for the day, because once that fish has eaten what you've thrown in as free offerings, it won't want to eat for upwards of several days, because it will be full up and its liver will be processing the oil. This is very important. So you've got the choice. It takes 10 minutes to make some bait at home. You can make it several times in a week. You can put it in the freezer and you can use it fresh. And if you make it fresh, it'll last for at least a week in a plastic bag, sealed up in the bottom of your fridge. You don't need to freeze it. So we'll just cause a pause there, because I've gone off on a bit of a rant, but it's important. The key thing here is to talk about a range of things that you can do, and I will certainly be doing that right now. And I think what we'll do is crack on straight away, and I'll show you what I've made. In all good cooking programs, this is something I made earlier. So this is a 2-egg mix of bio shellfish. I've made it into a paste, and I've flavoured this, which can be used for barbel or carp. It's a food bait, so this is ready for when the water temperatures start warming up. And I flavoured it with a little bit of Ala Salar, a little bit of hot Cajun spice, a touch of shrimp extract, and I've put salmon oil in, because as the water gets warmer and the fish are able to cope with a little bit of extra protein and oil content, you can put a little bit of salmon oil in. And I put that in for 2 reasons. Number one, it helps make the paste pliable with what I'm going to do with it today. And also, it's something they need nutritionally, but in a controlled amount. So in a 2-egg mix, I've put 5 ml of salmon oil. Here it is, fresh salmon oil in the mix. So there's a contrast there, isn't there? I've mentioned about high oil content earlier, but this is a measured amount of oil at a time when you are using a bait where they can assimilate it, and you're using that bait in a measured way. So we'll just have a pause for a second, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with this ball of paste. See you in a second. Okay, as you can see, it's just my hands in the shot now, and I've got the paste that I'm beginning to shape into a size of like a giant beef burger, which is going to fit into my basket, my wire basket. And you can use it, buy yourself a cheap rolling pin to roll this out, and you can do it any thickness you want. I like to do it about 1.5 centimeters, something like that. you can see here I'm rolling it with this big piece of dowel, and I'm shaping it so that it fits inside the basket. Turn that basket upside down to double check that it fits inside. So this is the bio shellfish mix I mentioned earlier. Here it is. That's a 2-egg mix. You get quite a lot of bait out of that. Obviously you can do a 1-egg mix. We'll just put that to one side, and this is something I made yesterday. Look at that. That's a seedy yellow cream seed mix, one side, flavoured with cream caramel and maple blended, and on the other side is bio shellfish. So it's a double skinned pate, if you like. And when you take it to the river or the lake like this, put it in your spog mix, carve it up, and look at that. Is that different? Absolutely fantastic. So you're actually going to be cutting this up like this in any size that you like. Nice sharp knife. As I cut through this, I can hear all the seeds being cut through. These are little Niger seeds. And look at the fantastic opportunity to make all these different shapes and sizes. It doesn't really matter what they are, and the inside's quite soft. I've only boiled this big chunk of bait, this block bait, or whatever you want to call it. I've only boiled this for about 1 minute and 45 seconds. You can boil it for a lot less, and then you'll have almost a complete paste centre. And we'll try that with the one that I've made earlier on. Also, there's another thing you can do using the hook bait mixes which have been sieved, and the grade of sieve needs to be quite fine. This one's very fine, it's 1/2 mil. 1 mil to 1/2 mil is about right. When you're going to make super fine paste, you use this sieve to sieve the standard base mix, or you can use the hook bait mixes that I sell, which already have been sieved, and that will make a super fine paste that you can wrap around one of these when you put it on the hook, or you can just use it straight moulded round a cork ball. So we'll get this boiled up and I'll show you how we do that. Start the boiling now. I use this fork just to hold it down. It's a pretty vigorous boil, but you need to make sure the water's always boiling. You don't want to stew the bait, you want to cook it quick. That's coming up to 50 seconds. So that's 1 minute and 15 seconds we boiled that for. And whilst we're chatting, all the steam coming off here, whilst we're chatting, we'll let this dry out a little bit. Normally what I would do is give this at 6 to 8 hours drying, and then either pop it in the fridge for a week, or if I was doing this the night before or the evening before I was going fishing, wrap it up in a piece of plastic bag or a piece of cling film and go fishing the next day. Can't be better when it's fresh bait, and you can do this pretty much anywhere, in the garden, in a shed, round at a friend's house. It's easy to do and quick, no equipment required. You do need a decent boiling ring, but you can, if you make smaller amounts, say 1 egg mixes, you can do this on a camp stove. See you in a second. Hello everybody, so we've made ourselves a cup of coffee, and the thing that we boiled earlier is just drying here. It's still a little bit warm, but I'll just say a few more things that I wanted to mention just whilst this is cooling off a bit more, then we'll cut into it and you'll see the texture. One of the things that's been quite apparent with various emails that I've had, and I've had lots of emails, so thank you for that. Quite a few people are saying, do I need to rehydrate previously frozen boilies? Well, okay, I understand that if you've had boilies sitting in your freezer all over the winter, perhaps last year's bait, and you want to give it a boost, and you want to put a glug dip, liquid food, something like that over it, I understand the concept of doing that, but I don't actually recommend that. And there's a reason for that. It's because obviously that bait, whether you've made it yourself, had it done in a rolling company, or bought it off the shelf, is already usually quite strong in flavour. It won't particularly have lost much of its flavour over the time it's been in the freezer. So if you then take it out, defrost it, and cover it in a load more glug or liquid food, it's going to be really strong. And when you put that into the water column, whilst it seems, very attractive to you, it's completely over the top for fish. Furthermore, nearly everyone does it. So much better to use your old bait up, trickle it in. If you have to, throw it in, that's fine, no problem at all. Certainly won't hurt the fish. And if you can, use fresh bait at your earliest opportunity. And when I come on to that over flavouring bait or dipping and glugging, which is a fashion really, because we never used to do that, I will add a little caveat to that. I think it's a habit that's come into the fore with people going to France a lot more, which is going to change an awful lot in 2021 because we can't go and we can't take bait. Hopefully that will change as the year progresses. But people have been air drying baits sometimes for a week or 2 or 3 or a month, and they're rock hard and bone dry. This is a tactic where you don't have storage facilities on your holidays in France or in Europe, that you can rehydrate bait with a liquid food. And certainly I'm not opposed to doing that. So yeah, by all means, use it to rehydrate air dried bait, not a problem, but just do it minimally. That would be my advice. And don't put too much out in any one go. So you've not got a massive bed of bait out there that you've put out with a coating all over it, because again, that will be very, very strong in the water column. I've recently written an article, wrote it a couple of weeks ago, and it's due out next in Carpology, I think in the May issue. That's Carpology magazine, where I've done quite a long series in that mag, and I've enjoyed every minute of that. This one is about particle baits. It's called Particularly Good Particles, and it's just the top 4 or 5 particles that I've enjoyed using. And there's a common theme with my own particle preparation, and that is that I tend not to flavour them. In my view, particles are at their best when they're in their natural form, so I tend to use them just soaked 24 hours, boiled in the same water, and I take them to the lake in the water where they've cooled down. I know you can add all sorts of things to them, and on certain occasions it does work. If you're going to put something in, it needs to be, if it's a flavour, it needs to be heat resistant, so not an oil-based flavour. Ideally, you need something which is solvent-based, so a confectionery flavour. In particular, maple cream. Maple is deadly, and the dedicated one I do is particle punch, which you will know about, which has been around a while, but it works. And that's a great particle bait additive, which you just put into the cold water, stir it round, and let the particles absorb the flavour and liquids that are in that additive. So that works quite well. You've also seen me making all these various baits today, like this rather unusual double layer thing, a bit like a layer cake. Whether it's making boilies or whether it's making these block baits, chop ups, that sort of thing, you really don't need round boilies unless you are fishing much more than 50 or 60 yards out in a lake, because you can catapult chop ups, which I've shown in earlier clips. You can catapult them 40 or 50 yards, no problem. And certainly for river fishing, you don't need round baits at all. So all your river fishing can be with irregularly shaped baits, block baits, chop ups. You don't need round baits. People say, oh, I haven't got facilities. I haven't got a shed, or I haven't got a garage. There's a problem doing it at home. It's smelly, that sort of thing. Well, there's a quick answer to that. Hopefully you'll have a friend who has got a garden or who has got a shed, and you can team up together and once a month have a bait making session where you share the workload, make a batch of bait, get it all dried off, and you can go home and take it with you. If you haven't got freezer space, maybe you could store it in somebody else's freezer, if you've got a good mate that will let you do that. And there's another thing which I've been asked as well, and that is that freezer, I can't put it in the same freezer as our food, my partner won't let me, my wife won't let me, which I understand. So just go on the internet, have a look, because you can buy a small desktop or benchtop freezer about this big for £99. It's available in quite a few different electrical appliance stores, and if you want to maintain that fresh bait thing, you can also buy a fridge with a freezer section for the same money. So you can have your own little bait freezer if you've got space for it somewhere at home. That pretty much concludes the clip for this week. And thank you very much for following us. Both William and I have been thoroughly enjoying doing it. We still do. We're still mad keen for it. And I think when I mentioned earlier on about you embracing this and perhaps being the 10% minority that make their own bait, you will reap the rewards from it. And it's a massive satisfaction. I've had lots of emails of people saying, oh, you've got me to get all my old equipment out of the loft and I'm now making baits again. I haven't made it for 20 years. And then I get the pictures, and by the way, this is what I've caught. And we get some smashing pictures of fish where people have made the bait themselves again and they're brimming with confidence. So if I've inspired a few people to do that, and I know I have, so that's a plus point for me, makes me feel great. Carry on doing it, and we'll just cut this thing up now, see what it looks like. It's cooled off pretty much. It's about 3/4 of an hour probably. The sunlight's quite bright coming through this window, but we'll cut it completely in half and we'll see what sort of texture we've got. Well, that's lovely. So there's a little crust on the outside, quite thin, like a 1mm crust, and you can just see in the sunlight there quite a soft paste centre. And after a 6 to 8 hour dry, you've effectively got something that is equivalent to base mix luncheon meat, if you like, but it's made with proper ingredients. Doesn't come out of a tin, made fresh. You've been in control. What a great way to start the new season off in June, which is just round the corner, whether you're fishing for carp or fishing for barbel. And hopefully, when the weather warms up and the fish start feeding, the next clip that William and I want to do is by the lake, catching a fish. See you soon.